The following program includes graphic images and mature subject matter intended for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Tonight on 16 by 9, the day the wave came.
We can see the black giant, the black wave came to us and struck everything.
That swept their world out to sea.
Who did you lose in the tsunami?
My brother, my grandma, cousin, auntie. So I'm lucky that I'm still survived.
Remembering the tsunami 10 years later.
Some people like, hey, help me, help me. Help me, how can I help? If I help this one, where I have to move? Because all is the water.
And going broke to stay alive.
That was her lifeline, the pills, and the government would not pay for her lifeline.
Cancer treatment with a hefty price tag.
It's putting people with serious illnesses like cancer at significant financial burden.
Forcing patients to choose between their life and their life savings.
I would have liked to have retired. I had planned on retiring. Unfortunately, something called cancer got in the way.
I watched her take her last breath, and that was hard.
Ten years ago this week, the third largest earthquake ever recorded unleashed a wall of water on Southeast Asia, changing it forever. 14 countries in all were struck, but no single spot was hit harder than the small Indonesian city of Banda Aceh. Global's Mike Armstrong covered the tsunami's aftermath a decade ago, and this month he went back to a city that was almost erased from the map.
The first time I came to this place, the first time I made this trip, I wanted to turn around almost as soon as I arrived. It was too painful. What we saw in this city, Banda Aceh, was so horrible, so tragic. The group I was with basically couldn't take it any longer. We couldn't stay. We went to the airport, desperate to leave. There were no commercial flights left, but the airfield was packed with aid planes. It was just before sunset, and I literally jogged around the tarmac from plane to plane, asking pilots if they were leaving. We actually paid police cash to get on their plane to get to another city. Anywhere, as long as it got us out of this place. And I've wanted to come back ever since. One of the places I had to see again is on the road from the airport. It looks like a park. It's actually a mass grave, the city's biggest. More than 47,000 bodies are buried on this postage stamp of land, without markers, without names. I walked here 10 years ago. Here on the road out to the airport, it shakes just too often. They start that tractor every once in a while. There was no grass, only mud. The holes still open, the smell from the rotting corpses overwhelming. To walk here 10 years later, it's the scale of the loss that's overwhelming. The size of the disaster just as hard to fathom as the size of the waves that hit this city, in some spots as high as 30 meters. The images that came from that day seemed like science fiction. The word tsunami, unfamiliar before, entered just about every language around the world. Well, those who saw it don't need videotapes to remember it. Mulia Melita runs a rooming house for backpackers.
From here, it's a huge wave.
Melita was a 24-year-old student the day her neighborhood was swept away. Who did you lose in the tsunami?
My brother, my grandma, cousin, auntie. So I'm lucky that I'm still survived.
How many friends do you think you lost?
Sorry, I can't answer.
Banda Aceh is a changed city, bustling but altered physically and emotionally. In and around this provincial capital, more than 165,000 people were killed or disappeared. Entire neighborhoods, complete communities were wiped out. Melita's home was just blocks from this mosque. When you came back to here, I mean, I've seen the pictures. Everything here was destroyed. What was it like to come back?
It's like desert. Like it's all sandy after when, and I just like, oh, it's all gone.
It started with an earthquake at 7:58 a.m. It was a Sunday morning. Now, people in Aceh are used to the ground shaking, but not like this. A normal tremor lasts a matter of seconds. This one, nearly 10 minutes. People couldn't stand, literally knocked off their feet. There were injuries, but no one would ever know how many. There wouldn't be time. Something worse than the earthquake was coming. Indonesia sits on the Ring of Fire, a horseshoe 40,000 kilometers long that includes Canada's west coast. It's the meeting place of several tectonic plates shifting and pushing into each other. Indonesia lies at the meeting point of three different plates: the Australian, the Pacific, and the Eurasian. The geological fault lines between them are cracks in the Earth's crust. Now, those fault lines make the country particularly vulnerable to earthquakes. These are quakes in 2004, dozens, month after month, a regular year. Then comes December 26th.
Next, in the path of the Black Giant.
People are running. Once they fall, that's it.
That's it. If they fall, never wake up anymore.
Never stand up.
Never stand up anymore.
The following program includes graphic images and mature subject matter intended for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Dalam gemuruh gelombang, mata nanar mencari harap. Di mana kau kekasih? Di mana kau nak?
When the earthquake hit that morning, fisherman Muhammad Nazar was out at sea, about 60 kilometers from the city.
Wati tengah kamu kemawi, jadi merasa menggogok. Tadi pagi baru kamu sadari bahwanya gempa. Gempa.
The first alert that went out from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center pegged the quake at 8 on the Richter scale. That alert included the line, "No destructive tsunami threat exists." What they would find out later is the actual power of the quake was much stronger, 9.1 to 9.3. And what happened at the epicenter was basically the worst-case scenario. It's called a megathrust earthquake. One tectonic plate pushing against another shifts up. That thrust pushes massive amounts of water up quickly. It rises and then settles. The tsunami had begun. But for the men out at sea in deep water, it was barely perceptible under their boats.
Kamu dari Kemawi kebetulan ji ia lo sekitar 80 meter. Sekitar 80 meter jadi gelombang na tapi hana raya gelombang. Sabah aja ia lo nyoba ia dia baru bedah gelombang. Nyo kamu Kemawi ba ia lo hana tadi bedah gelombang.
At sea, a tsunami wave travels hundreds of kilometers an hour. It slows down as it hits shallower waters, but it gets taller. By the time it hit land here in Banda Aceh, it was a wall of water. Gaia Triani's home was about a kilometer from the ocean. When people started screaming, her family went to a neighbor's home where they could get higher and look out.
On the second floor, we can see the black giant. The black wave came to us and struck everything.
You saw the wave coming at you?
Yes, I saw.
And how high was it?
When we were on the second balcony, the water up to an adult neck, like this.
Still fishing at sea, Nizar had barely noticed the wave, but felt uncomfortable. Something told him to head back in. What he found was a nightmare.
Kamu manyet domino babine keruang lam keruang kamu yang manyet kamu fikir masanya konflik terjadi peperangan besar. Lagi yang terjadi peperangan besar. Ia laut tsunami dengan ketinggian mencapai 20 meter lebih.
Semua berpacu mencari tahu. Kota lumpuh. Sanak saudara tenggelam, tergulung, dan banyak yang tak kembali.
There are markers at the mass grave closest to the ocean, just a handful, placed at the end when babies were buried. There are more than 14,000 bodies here. Eddie Quinzalo had family that lived nearby. Who did you lose?
I lose like my aunt, my uncle, my cousin, my nephew and niece for my cousin, and especially my best friend.
That's a massive loss, all at the same time, like literally the same day. How do people go on after that?
It's really hard. I feel like our life is done. It's finished.
That's how people felt?
Yeah.
You can't live through such a horrible event, feel and be surrounded by so much tragedy, and not be deeply affected. What the people here lived through is unimaginable. I was here nearly 2 full weeks after the tsunami, and there were still bodies all over. As the body collectors go about their work, Yati Idris goes about hers. The bodies might have gone this way.
Yeah, might have gone this way. So
Idris is trying to follow the path the water took, hoping to find the bodies of her family. She steps around one body to look at 2 others. The brutal truth is she's looking at decomposing bodies, hoping to recognize someone she loves. Moments later, as she walks away, the ground shakes under her feet as a tractor moves in and drops another body on the pile. Gonzalo, like tens of thousands of others, lived that nightmare. With the water rising around him, he ran to this mosque. From a second-floor window, he watched dozens of people fall, overcome by the current, and drown. People are running. Once they fall, that's it.
That's it. If they fall, never wake up anymore.
Never stand up.
Never stand up anymore.
Gonzalo spent hours at the mosque, then ventured out. Wading in water at times waist deep, he made his way to his sister's home, desperate to find his niece. You were going from body to body.
Yeah.
How many bodies do you think you turned over looking for friends and family?
Honestly, I have to find my niece body or my sister.
So how many bodies do you think you turned over looking?
Around 50, something like that.
50 bodies you turned over?
Turned over. And some people like, hey, help me, help me. Help me, how can I help? Okay, let's say I help like 3 people. So if I help this one, where I have to move? To where I have to move? Because all is the water.
The waters eventually receded back to the ocean, and eventually people returned there as well, but it took time. The shoreline in Banda Aceh held too many awful memories for people like Zikri Andid. He lost 6 members of his family. They were never found. I was here 10 years ago after the tsunami, and nobody came to the water. There were no families here looking out at the beautiful sunset.
Kondisi yang benar-benar mungkin lebih nyaman, saya pikir sekitar 3 tahunan. 3 tahunan mungkin orang lebih sudah mulai nyaman ke laut.
Dalam gemuruh gelombang yang masih bergemuruh hingga kini. Apa yang bisa kita cari? Kebesaran hati mengajak diri agar tak tenggelam dalam tsunami buatan diri.
Next, what the tsunami left behind.
I have like many friends who, like the whole family is like gone. He's the only one who survived.
I think this is a second life.
The hands on this clock don't move. It's a monument, frozen to the minute the earthquake hit. Now, not that they could have ever forgotten what happened, but there is an effort here to make sure everyone remembers. There are wrecked buildings, but about the only place you'll find them are where they've been left intentionally, part of tourist attractions, like this massive barge. It's nearly 100 meters long, a diesel electrical power generator. It's 2,500 tons of steel that was pushed 5 kilometers inland. It's left as a reminder or even proof of the tsunami's power. Across town, another ship is perched on a rooftop. It's almost legendary. 59 people were saved when it washed up without a captain a kilometer from the ocean. Among them, Gaia Triani and her family, panicking with water rising around them.
We saw from the far that the fishermen boats came toward us. And we called the boat, boat, help us. And suddenly, the boat was stuck right in front of my neighbor's house. And then we climbed to the roof and we climbed to the boats.
Triana today works at the biggest memorial, the city's massive Tsunami Museum. It's one of the largest buildings in the city. The roof was built to hold 2,000 people in the event of another tsunami. Completed in 2009, it cost more than $6 million. It's supposed to be partly a thank you to the dozens of countries that helped with the recovery. The museum has a chamber dedicated to the names of the victims. More are still being added. The museum has a room that's meant to put you in between the waves. The walls of Tsunami Alley, as it's called, seem to stretch up forever. They're actually the height of the waves that day. Outside town, another attraction, this one less formal. It's the dome of a mosque, again, pushed more than 1.5 kilometers into rice fields. So the fact it was moved makes it one of the most impressive memorials. It defies belief until you're told the waves in this spot reached to the tops of the coconut trees. Local guide Bin Rusuli Abdullah.
When you look at something this big and you realize how it was pushed here by rushing water very, very high, did anybody in this area survive?
Ada yang selamat di atas bundaran itu, ada 7 orang.
Now, there's another purpose to these attractions. They've been left inside communities to create business opportunities around them for locals. Tourists pull up by the busload to see the dome. Outside the barge, you can buy DVDs of the tsunami. They're incredibly graphic. And at the boat on the roof, small shops have opened up. It's literally a tourist attraction in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Tour guide Salmi Hardianti says the boat creates jobs where otherwise people might still be suffering. It's not thought of as voyeuristic disaster tourism, but rather a sort of memory tourism.
Because of tsunami, because of this boat, it makes me, as a tour guide, a local guide in here, can share to all the people, and also many, the women who lost their husband, they can sell it like a souvenir. It's, open the job for all the citizens in this area.
Now, another thing the tsunami opened up was Aceh itself. Before the tsunami, the province was cut off from the rest of the world. There was no tourism here. Aceh was in the throes of a 30-year civil war. They call it the conflict. Fighting between the army and separatist militias cost 15,000 lives. After the tsunami, the government basically had to open up for international aid groups. It forced the two sides to eventually reach a peace agreement just 7 months later. For local politician Rina Mushia, the peace agreement is the tsunami's silver lining.
Before the tsunami, if you apply for Indonesian visa, for instance, they will have something mentioned like it's not valid for Aceh. So you can imagine, we Acehnese, we never saw any foreigners before, and then that day, like after the 26th, like the whole, you name it, like even Luxembourgish was here.
Now, while it opened Aceh up to the world, the tsunami also reinforced religion for many here. Mosques seem to have been spared, while so much around them was destroyed. It may have been the way they were built, but many still see it today as a sort of divine protection.
Only the mosque safe. That is what I feel is God is very great. That is the place for us to pray, so God save the place.
After the tsunami, international aid poured into Aceh. $7 billion US was pledged. It was massive and vital. In the first weeks after the disaster, there was fear tens of thousands of people could die from disease. It never happened, but 500,000 were displaced from their homes. Well, 10 years later, neighborhoods that were flattened are thriving once again. 140,000 homes were built. Street after street, the homes look basically the same. These ones were built by Turkey. Now, there are homes that sit empty. In some cases, it was bad coordination. Sometimes people found other places to live. They've moved out. But there are also cases where the homeowners are too young to move in. Children who lost their parents in the tsunami, who hold the rights to the land, but are still living in orphanages. Orphans were another challenge for Aceh. Many went to live with family members, but thousands of others needed homes. This orphanage was set up a month to the day after the tsunami hit. Nazira has been here ever since. She was in grade 3 when her mother was killed in the tsunami. The body was never found. 2 years earlier, she was in grade 1 when her father was killed in the Civil War. His body she did find herself. After a decade in the orphanage, she says she intends to move out when she finishes her studies. She says she is today comfortable.
Senang, nggak ada lagi keributan, nggak ada lagi kekacauan. Hidup damai.
This is a city that was, at one point, without a doubt, the saddest place on earth. For some, the loss was too painful, the trauma too great. There were suicides. A year after the tsunami, Melita had flashbacks, but she was able to get therapy through an international aid organization.
I have a new life now. I don't even see my friends before tsunami, even they're still alive, but because my background before was I was studying in university in electrical engineering, so most of my friends like student. But no, I'm a villager.
You left that part behind.
But I enjoy it.
Aceh could have steeped in its sorrow, but instead turned the page. More shocking than the earthquake and more unbelievable than the waves is that people were able to get through it. For some, that took looking at the tsunami and everything that came after as a test from God.
I think this is a second life.
It's happened to everybody, not only you.
For others, it was a matter of recognizing everyone was suffering. And no matter what you were living through, you could find someone else worse off.
I have like many friends who just, like the whole family is like gone. He's the only one who survived.
Today, there is something here in this city that I never saw 10 years ago. They are everywhere now. Smiles. Just about everyone you meet will tell you life today is actually better than life before the tsunami. Aceh is open to the world, the roads are better, buildings are better, the economy is better, and the civil war is over. Banda Aceh should not be known just for the disaster, but also for the incredible international solidarity and the inspiring resilience of the people here. I will also remember, as I leave this place again, not the tears this time, but smiles. It is a much better memory to take away.